I think if in 2012, when the Rashtrapati had to be chosen, had we given due honors to Dr. Manmohan Singh for his immense contribution to India's nation building by making him the president and bringing in Pranab Mukherjee as the prime minister, we may still have lost in 2014, but I don't think we'd have sunk to 44 seats. We may, in fact, have been around 140 seats.
You know, you said that when Enram went to meet Rahul Gandhi and spoke about you, Rahul Gandhi said, I don't like him, I love him. But most people have the impression that he's kept you at arm's length all the time.
He has. But he also said he loved Modi. So I've always wondered about that.
Which suggests that, in fact, if his love for money, Shankar Aiyar is like his love for Modi, he doesn't love either of you very much at all.
I don't think that's the interpretation I would put. I think at a personal level, he has a high regard for me, but he regards me as a political liability. He also says that he does not want me in parliament because I'm too old.
Are there any BJP leaders, either of the past or of today, who you say you could admire?
Yes, a man who was virtually a congressman, who came deeply under the influence of Jawaharlal Nehru, to the point that Golwalkar and Savarkar were almost displaced in his thinking and his practice. And that was Atal Bihari Vajpayee. He did not allow the RSS background that he had, the RSS training that he had, to communalize his prime ministership. Like Modi's prime ministership is a communalized prime ministership. It was Vajpayee was a good man in a wrong party, but it couldn't stop him from being a good man.
Tell me, do you intensely dislike Narendra Modi?
Yes.
Hello and welcome to a special interview for The Wire. My guest today considers himself a maverick in politics, but the truth is most people think of him in multiple different ways and only last of all as a politician. He's been a Pakistan-friendly diplomat, a provocative columnist, an insightful author, and an irrepressible bon viveur and raconteur. Today, he's with me to talk about the Congress-led UPA's years in power and his own time as an MP and cabinet minister. Here is the second volume of his autobiography. It's called A Maverick in Politics. And if you haven't read it, let me tell you, it's compelling reading. And finally, if you haven't guessed who I'm talking about, it's the one and only Mani Shankar Aiyar. Mani Shankar Aiyar, your book is full of fascinating reflections and revelations about the years the Congress-led UPA was in power, and I'd like to discuss several of them with you. But let's start in January 1998, 6 years before the UPA came to power, when you were briefly with the Trinamool Congress. With Mamata Banerjee's enthusiastic support, you attempted to get Dr. Manmohan Singh to join the Trinamool. Why don't you start by telling me what happened?
Well, I fetched up in Kolkata. I didn't know anything about West Bengal politics. And my host said to me that Northwest Calcutta, which is where he and his wife were from, was the safest seat in India for a non-communist. So I said to Mamata Banerjee that Dr. Manmohan Singh had expressed to me his very deep dissatisfaction with the Congress under Sitaram Kesri. So why don't I go and ask him whether he'll contest on a Trinamool ticket from Northwest Calcutta? And she said, we'll make him the prime minister because the situation that will prevail after the 1998 election will be as in 1996, when eventually Deve Gowda emerged as the prime minister. So I came back to Delhi and I went to meet Dr. Saab. And I put before him this rather strange proposal that he join the TMC, that's the Trinamool Congress, and contest from Northwest Calcutta. I'd expected him to say no. I hoped that there was an off chance of his saying yes. But what I never anticipated was the actual answer I got. Looking very mournful, Dr. Manmohan Singh said to me, "You know, Mani, this country will never accept a Sikh as Prime Minister." And yet, 6 years later, not only did he become Prime Minister, but no one in the country objected to him on any ground that he was a Sikh. But it did reflect the trauma that the Sikh community went through over the invasion of the Golden Temple area by the Indian Army, and subsequently the pogrom against the Sikhs in the first few days of November 1984.
But tell me, was he terribly surprised when in 2004 Sonia Gandhi picked him to be Prime Minister? Because clearly 6 years earlier he thought a Sikh would never become Prime Minister. So when he became the first Sikh Prime Minister, was he very surprised?
Well, the only way I can answer the question is to say that when I went to see him a day or two after his announcement as Prime Minister, I went to his house. He was still in Safdarjung Road, and he looked bewildered, and he said, "I never thought this would happen." So, yes, I imagine he was taken aback, but he was, I think, very happy that the country had reposed so much confidence in him. And it was really the result of the welcome the country gave his economic reforms as the finance minister.
Now, looking back on the second Manmohan Singh government, it was badly shaken by the 2G scandal, by Colgate and the Anna Hazare movement. And in this wonderful book of yours, and I'm holding it up once again, you write about much of this. But tell me, how adeptly, how adequately were these three crises handled?
Well, the crisis in 2012 of governance arose from the fact that almost simultaneously with each other, Dr. Manmohan Singh fell very seriously ill and had as many as 6 bypasses, and Sonia Gandhi also fell very ill, and no one till today knows what was the matter, but she did fall very ill and went abroad for treatment. So at that time, our party was leaderless and our government became leaderless. And in the middle of that came the India Against Corruption campaign of Anna Hazare. And the whole of the UPA too started falling apart, and there was no one available to really pull it back again. And so I have said in my reflections that I think if in 2012, when the Rashtrapati had to be chosen, had we given due honors to Dr. Manmohan Singh for his immense contribution to India's nation building by making him the president and bringing in Pranab Mukherjee as the prime minister, we may still have lost in 2014, but I don't think we'd have sunk to 44 seats. We may, in fact, have been around 140 seats.
And much of this is, in fact, the center point of your book, which I found particularly fascinating. Let's go through a lot of what you said step by step so it's easier for the audience. First of all, in your book, you write, I think the lowest point in UPA2's reign was when 3 union ministers went to Delhi airport to receive the private aircraft of Baba Ramdev, the highly controversial godman who was supporting Anna Hazare. Now, frankly, that was a bizarre mistake to have made. And at the time when it happened, everyone realized this was folly on the part of the government. Tell me, how did it happen and who's responsible for it happening?
I don't know who's responsible, but I would have to admit, not only admit, but affirm that it was a decision taken by the Congress leadership, who particularly in that leadership took the initiative. Who did anyone oppose it? Was it a consensus decision? Was it an imposed decision? I simply don't know. But the spectacle of Pranab Mukherjee, Salman Khurshid, and Kapil Sibal standing at the airport to receive this somewhat strange godman's private plane could only be explained by what happened subsequently. They succeeded in taking him directly from the airport to Claridge's Hotel. And in Claridge's Hotel, they held him for a day or two, I can't remember how many days. And he then signed a statement in which he said that he was not going to be supporting Anna Hazare. So, on receiving this statement, these three ministers then allowed him to go, and Baba Ramdev went directly to Anna Hazare and emerged as one of his principal aides, along with Kiran Bedi and Arvind Kejriwal and others whose names we didn't really know then, but which have become extremely prominent since. And the handling of that whole Anna Hazare's fast was really very incompetent, because he was first refused permission to hold his rally or his fast, his demonstration in Ramlila grounds, and told to do it somewhere near Rajghat. And then there was a protest on that, saying that the area that was being designated near Rajghat was not adequate, and therefore he wanted to go back to Ramlila grounds. So he was given that permission. And then once the thing was on, there was an attack by the police on the rally in the middle of the night. And while we all had a laugh about Baba Ramdev escaping from there dressed as a Muslim woman in a burqa, the fact of the matter is that with that entire episode, we were actually on the downslide and have never since recovered.
Now, when you say that the decision was taken by the Congress leadership as a whole, are you suggesting that Sonia Gandhi and Manmohan Singh concurred with the idea of sending the second senior most minister in government, Pranab Mukherjee, with Salman Khurshid and Kapil Sibal to the airport? Was Sonia Gandhi and Manmohan Singh on board with this bizarre decision?
I have already told you that I am not aware of what was the discussion in the Congress leadership. Who supported it, who suggested this, who opposed it, I don't know. So therefore, I'm not in a position to give the clarification that you're seeking from me.
Okay. Now, in 2012, and you mentioned this a moment ago, Manmohan Singh required multiple bypasses, and Sonia Gandhi, as you said, became very ill. Both events happened in the same year. As you said, it crippled the Congress party because simultaneously you lost both the head of government and the head of party at the time. As a result, you believe there was, and I'm quoting you, no governance in 2013. Did Sonia Gandhi and Dr. Manmohan Singh realize at the time that this was a recipe for forthcoming electoral defeat? Because they did nothing about it, and that defeat happened, and it was humiliating when it did.
I don't think anyone, not even Mr. Modi, indeed not even Mr. Karan Thapar, anticipated that the 2014 election would be such a disaster for the Congress party. Yes, defeat was possible, but a humiliating defeat was not anticipated and came as a big shock when it happened. So I don't think you can attribute prescience to any actor. It just so happened that the failure of governance in the stasis in governance, as I've described it, in 2013 inevitably led to our defeat in 2014. And I believe that if instead of Dr. Manmohan Singh in 2013, we had had Mr. Pranab Mukherjee as the Prime Minister of India, we may still have been defeated, but I don't think we would have been as humiliatingly defeated as we actually were.
Pranab Mukherjee, and you mentioned this in your book, in his own book, believes that Sonia Gandhi did think of the possibility of making him prime minister but didn't act on it. Do you believe that is in fact the truth? That she thought about it, then changed her mind?
Well, Pranab Mukherjee is very particular in saying that there were vague rumors that while Sonia Gandhi was recuperating in the Kausambi Hills, she may have considered the possibility of making Dr. Manmohan Singh the president. And in the next paragraph, which I have quoted, he says that this led him, that is Pranab Mukherjee, to believe that perhaps he would be considered for prime minister. So clearly, in 2012, at least in circles connected with the Congress party, the possibility of Dr. Manmohan Singh being made the president and therefore Pranab Mukherjee being made the prime minister was being actively considered. I'm surprised that the media today thinks that this is a revelation. I think back in 2012, this was very much in speculation.
The problem is that most people believe that the Gandhis have an aversion to Pranab Mukherjee, which goes back to the day Indira Gandhi died on the 31st of October 1984, when they believe he wanted to become the acting prime minister or the stand-in prime minister. Did they misunderstand the man? And as a result, did they deny Congress a prime minister who might have either salvaged the situation or at least ensured a better result in 2014? Did they essentially misunderstand Pranab Mukherjee?
I can only quote back to you what Pranab Mukherjee told me. He said that all he had indicated was that, as in the case of the succession to Jawaharlal Nehru and then Lal Bahadur Shastri, there was first an interim prime minister. It was the same man, Gulzari Lal Nanda, and Pranab Mukherjee had thought that that would be a similar arrangement after Indira Gandhi was assassinated. And he appears to have indicated this while he was in the plane with Rajiv Gandhi flying back from Kolkata to Delhi. He had been with Rajiv in Midnapur. Now, he was included in the cabinet on the 31st of October, but dropped from it on the 31st of December, when Rajiv came back with a huge majority. And at that time, he was also rusticated from the party. He was expelled from the party. And Pranab told me that in 1988, when there was to be a state election in Tripura, and it looked as if the veteran communist leader, Nripen Chakrabarti, might get defeated by the Congress, the general secretary in charge of Tripura, who was one Mr. Mallu, went to Pranab and told him that the prime minister, that is Rajiv Gandhi, wants him to canvass for the Congress party in Tripura. And Pranab said, but I'm not even in the party, I've been expelled. At which point Mallu, who was not a very senior congressman, asked Santosh Mohan Dev, who had been put in charge of that Tripura election, to meet Pranab and tell him that this was Rajiv Gandhi's wish. So then Pranab, when he met with Santosh, said that I can't be canvassing for the Congress if I stand expelled from the Congress. And so I must meet with Rajiv Gandhi personally. That was fixed up. And apparently Rajiv said to him, I never expelled you from the party. He said, but I got a letter saying that you were expelling me from the party. He said, I don't know anything about it. And you must go and assist the Congress. And so Pranab went to Tripura, and for the first and only time ever, the Congress actually formed the government, the state government of Tripura in 1988. And I was going in and out of Tripura with Rajiv Gandhi at the time. So I saw all this, even though I wasn't really a participant. So I think certainly after 1988, whatever had happened in 1984 and whatever was the explanation for that, after 1988, Pranab Mukherjee re-emerged as a major Congress player, and he had the confidence of Sonia Gandhi. He had the confidence of almost everyone in the Congress party. He was looked upon as a major leader. And even though he would often have tantrums and start shouting at people, there was a belief that he was a walking encyclopedia of what the Congress was, what it had stood for, and what had happened in the past. So, therefore, I think Pranab Mukherjee, post 1988, and certainly in 2012, was regarded by the entire party as second only to Sonia Gandhi. So the 1984 incident had been put behind the party, Pranab Mukherjee, Rajiv Gandhi, Sonia Gandhi, the party as a whole, 4 years later.
But you know, this is an amazing answer you've given me, Mani Shankar. You've answered my question about whether the Gandhis have an aversion to Pranab Mukherjee. But in doing so, you've opened a window of delightful confusion. It seems Pranab Mukherjee, an extremely senior man in government, the second senior most, in fact, when he was expelled, was expelled without the Prime Minister of the day knowing he'd been expelled. Or the Prime Minister of the day at least claimed he wasn't even aware of it, and yet that expulsion had happened, and a letter had been given to him to tell him he'd been expelled. This is bizarre confusion.
It's not bizarre. It's happened with me. I was suspended in December 2017, and about 4 or 5 years later, when I was talking on the telephone to Sonia Gandhi, she said that she had no idea that I had been suspended. Then I looked at the letter again, and it found that it was the Disciplinary Action Committee that had decided to suspend me, and it seems that they did that on their own. So these kind of mistakes in an organization do take place, but
Nobody, can I interrupt? These kind of mistakes don't take place in a well-run organization. It seems it's happened twice. It happened to Pranab Mukherjee, it's happened to you, and on both occasions, the president of the party was unaware that this action had taken place. It's bizarre.
I don't think it's bizarre, but I agree with you that it should not happen in a well-run organization.
Let me say what you're saying suggests that the bizarre is the norm in Congress.
That is the kind of assessment that you would make. I don't think the bizarre is normal in Congress, but mistakes do take place. We're human beings. There is an organization which really needs revamping, and that revamping has not taken place. And many individuals take devolved power as their own power and make decisions that harm the party. And then it takes a while before the leadership can correct that wrong decision. So in Pranab's case, he was rehabilitated when he was wanted, and I was rehabilitated. When I went to see Pranab about this, about my suspension, he said to me that when they need you, they'll call for you. Until then, you'll have to remain, as I had to remain, where I was.
Let's at this point focus on your relationship with the Gandhis. It seems to me the natural next step. You were very fond of Rajiv Gandhi, and you've always been extremely loyal to his memory. What drew you to each other, and how close, in fact, were you?
Well, I was a joint secretary, and he was a prime minister, and that was the only relationship we had. But I was the joint secretary in charge of his tour programs, and I was the speechwriter, especially for his international travels. So I was traveling with him all the time. I was very much in his company, and I understand from Chinmay Gharekha's book about the centers of power that there were people in PMO who, in my very first year, had advised Rajiv Gandhi that I was a bad influence and should be sent elsewhere. And he apparently asked Chinmay that people are telling me to get rid of Mani Shankar Aiyar. Should I do so? And should I send him as an ambassador somewhere? And Chinmay replied that, so that's your decision. I'm sure we can find him an ambassadorship somewhere. And Rajiv said to them, but I like him. And I never knew of this. And I remained with him for 6 years. And we seemed to have a good personal rapport, even though the official relationship was between a joint secretary and a prime minister, which, as you will well understand, is a very large gap to bridge. Then, of course, I asked him whether I could come into politics, and he was very reluctant to let me come. And when he did let me get in, when he saw that I was adamant, he then said to me, he warned me, he said, this system will never accept you. He said, I can't ever make you a minister. I said, I still want to come in, but will you make me a member of parliament? He said, oh, that I can do, but I can never make you a minister. And then he paid me a compliment on which I've survived for the last several years. The compliment was, whenever I give you a task, you never come back to me except to say it's done. So he said, will you come back into PMO as an officer on special duty? And I said, yes, of course, anything you want. But my life's ambition is to be a member of parliament, and I want you to make me one. And he said, that we'll manage. In fact, he didn't manage it. He tried to get me into the Rajya Sabha through the whole of 1990, failed at every point. And then when I discovered that Mailadurai was empty because my predecessor, Fakir Muhammad, had passed away, I asked him for permission to stand for a Lok Sabha election, and I won, but in the process I lost him. Now, when I came back without Rajiv Gandhi, I really was nervous, as I've explained in the book, or in the previous book it was, or was it here? Anyway, I was nervous as to how I would manage without the patronage of Rajiv Gandhi. And although Sonia Gandhi was not in politics as she insisted, she ensured that her hand was on my shoulder. And throughout the 5 years of Narasimha Rao's prime ministership, I think I was privileged as a backbencher because he thought that perhaps I was Sonia's man in the Congress. I don't know that this is so, but this is the only explanation I can give for being the most privileged backbencher in the Congress party when it was in power. And then when I walked out of the Congress, the first person I had met was Sonia, to tell her that if she didn't take over the party, I was going to leave it. And she said, I'm not in politics. And so I went out, I joined the Trinamool, and then while I was with the Trinamool, she came into the Congress. And when I came back, George said to me that why haven't you asked for an appointment with Sonia Gandhi? And I said, wait, does she want to see me? And he said, yes. So I said, I'll come. He says, no, first you have to ask. So I said, okay, George, I'm asking now. He said, can you come in 15 minutes? And I went to see Sonia, and I said to her that I had said to you, I will remain out of the Congress until you become the president of the Congress. What you've become is a member of Kesri's Congress. And Sonia said to me that there is no Kesri Congress, there's only one Congress. So I said to her, the one Congress has as its party platform the implementation of the Umadil Shankar Dikshit report, which is for democratizing the party. I said, does Kesri know anything about the Dikshit report? I said, his principal domestic platform was Panchayati Raj. Does Kesri know anything about Panchayati Raj? I said, his principal external platform was nuclear disarmament. What does Kesri know about nuclear disarmament? She said, I agree with you, but there is only one Congress and its president is Kesri. So I said, in that case, I'll remain with the Trinamool. But when I went back to Calcutta, I found to my horror that she was getting close to the BJP. Then I obtained an assurance from Mamta that she would not join a BJP-led government, which appeared almost certain in 1998 January. And when I was clear in my mind that she would actually be playing footsie with the BJP, I walked out of the Trinamool. I was the national secretary, but only for 3 weeks because I could not stand the thought of being associated with the BJP. I stood as an independent. I lost. I came back to Delhi. Sonia Gandhi was elected the president in March that year. And the first thing I did was to fetch up at the AICC, and she smiled and welcomed me back. And then several others said that since he has stood against the Congress candidate, he has to be expelled for 6 years. She overruled them and brought me back into the party. So I had the patronage of Sonia Gandhi. And if she had not been the decisive voice in the Congress, I don't think I'd have been made a cabinet minister. So that has established a very strong personal bond between me and the Gandhi family. When I was in my doldrums, M. Ram went to see Rahul Gandhi and said, shouldn't you use him? Don't you like him? And Rahul apparently said to
Well,
Ram,
you're jumping ahead of yourself, but carry on.
no, you asked me about my relationship with the Gandhi family. And the Gandhi family includes not only Rajiv and Sonia,
But
but
I
it
thought we
also,
take it stage by stage so it's easier for the
okay,
audience.
sure.
Finish your story about Enram going to Rahul Gandhi. What did Rahul Gandhi say?
He said, I don't like him, I love him. So I'm still waiting for that love to express itself in some concrete matter in politics. And whenever I've been in touch with Priyanka, she's been extremely kind to me, and she always recalls my association with her father. So even though it seems as if they want to politically, at least the next generation, wants to politically distance themselves from me, I think at a personal level, they remember and respect the very warm relationship I've had with both Rajiv and his wife Sonia.
You know, in your book, you say, and I'm quoting you, your career was made by the Gandhis and unmade by the Gandhis. The making of it happened with Rajiv. When did the unmaking start? At what particular point did your relationship begin to unravel?
Well, in my book, I've explained it at very great length. In 2010, there was an incident in April where 72 or 76 CRPF personnel were shot dead by the Maoists. And I was very upset with that because there had been an ongoing argument within the government, particularly between me and Mr. Chidambaram, as to whether the answer to Nakshal terror was the paramilitary or should be on the basis of the Panchayat's Extension to Scheduled Areas Act, which I think is the most important conformity legislation relating to our tribal areas and our tribal people, particularly in central India. And I was of the view, which was endorsed by the Bandyopadhyay committee, which looked into this, that we should be giving power to the tribals so that they rule themselves and give them the money, give them the personnel that would enable them to make their own decisions about their own lives. And that would more effectively drain the swamp and thereby get rid of the Maoist alligator than any other step. But I was overruled, or certainly I was not endorsed. And we had the paramilitary put into Bastar, and that had resulted in these 72 or 76 police personnel being killed. So I was very upset at that, and I rang Digvijay Singh, who was my closest ally on the question of PESA, and who had been, as Chief Minister of Composite Madhya Pradesh, in charge of that area, Chhattisgarh, which was Nakshal infected. And he said to me that he completely agreed with me, and so did Rahul and Sonia. So he said, why don't you talk to them? So I put the phone down, not realizing that he was in Houston. And somebody from the Economic Times rang him in Houston, and he gave an interview in which he said that he repeated what we had discussed, and then he added, "What's your assessment of P. Chidambaram?" And he replied that he's a very arrogant man who doesn't listen to anybody else. So with this, the NDTV came to see me, and they asked me for an interview. And I said, I agree with Digvijay 1,00,000%. Then they asked me about Chidambaram. And I said, he's a senior colleague of mine from my own state, so I'm not going to say anything about him. But typical of the media breed, especially the TV, what I said about Chidambaram was cut out from the projected version, and the Indian Express had the following day, which was the 14th of April, a lead story in which there was a lead story on the front page saying that Shankar Aiyar agrees 1,00,000% with Digvijay, and the story said that I had endorsed him 1,00,000% on Chidambaram. In fact, I had distanced myself from that statement. But I think Chidambaram was very upset. So he went to see Sonia, and she got infuriated that on the very day I was going to take my oath as a member of the Rajya Sabha, a position to which Sonia and Sonia alone had nominated me, that I had criticized one of her most important ministers. And so she gave me a ring. Like you, I've been in boarding school most of my life. Unlike you, I've been a civil servant. So I've always had bosses. And so I've been, scolded in the past. But I've never had a wigging like the one she gave me. She was infuriated. And so I found I could not present my defense to her, and decided that since I meet her so often, I'll clarify things later. But I didn't realize then that it would be more than 10 years before I got another opportunity to have a private one-on-one meeting with her.
You mean for 10 years she didn't talk to you one-on-one?
No.
That's an extreme reaction, isn't it?
Well, it was, and I think she was very angry. And I didn't get an opportunity to clarify my position.
Was she also upset by your subsequent remark about Modi being a niche chaiwala?
Well, she never saw that. She did say to me that several people had telephoned her on the day that Mr. Modi twisted my words. I never called the man a chaiwala. I never said that because he'd been a chaiwala, he could not be prime minister. It was Mr. Modi who called himself a chaiwala. And I don't believe it, because he was trying to prove his humble beginnings. Years later, there was a letter to the editor in one of our newspapers by a railway official who said that at Vadnagar, which is where Modi was born and brought up, there was no railway platform until 1973. So where was he serving tea? So I never believed that story. And the interview is still on YouTube. I invite everybody, including you, to look at it if you're interested. And you'll see that I never ever called him a chaiwala. But what Prashant Kishore did was pick up what I had said, which was what I did, what I said. I said that here is a man who, apart from being stained by the carnage of the Gujarat riots in 2002, does not know that Alexander never came to Patliputra and that Takshila is in Pakistan. How can he step into the shoes of Jawaharlal Nehru? And then very, very firmly, I said, Kabhi nahi, kabhi nahi, kabhi nahi. He'll never become prime minister. And then I added, and I've said in my book as a quip, I added laughingly that if he wants, after being defeated, if he wants, we can help him with serving tea. And this was converted by Prashant Kishore, as Prashant Kishore has boasted to me, into his campaign on Chai Pe Charcha. But the party never asked me about to give him any clarification. And later, when I said I was defending Rahul Gandhi, there had been the inauguration of the Ambedkar Bhavan on the 6th of December 2017. And Mr. Modi had said on that occasion that what does Rahul Gandhi know about Baba Sahab when he's out chasing Baba Bholenath, which is one of Lord Shiva's names? And I said, this is a very uncivilized way of talking. लगता है कि बड़े नीच किस्म के आदमी हैं. What I did not anticipate that Mr. Modi, who was in the election campaign, would twist my words, which were नीच किस्म के आदमी, into saying वो कहते हैं कि मैं नीच जाति का हूं. And the Congress party and Rahul Gandhi did not ask me whether what I had said. Instead, Republic TV came to me and said that Rahul Gandhi has asked me on Twitter to apologize. I've never been on Twitter. I'm still not on X. So I took it as, he said, well, if he wants me to apologize, I said to Republic TV कि मैं माजरत चाहता हूं. And he said, what does this mean? So I said, it's Urdu for apology. He said, why do you speak Urdu? Speak in Hindi. So I said, मैं माफी मांगता हूं. He said, वो ठीक है. So I said, Maafi is also an Urdu word. That's the extent to which the Hindus and the Muslims, Urdu and Hindi, are conjoined.
Tell me this.
And yet, then Ahmed Patel called me. And he said, well, I was trying to get you only to ask you to apologize. I see that you've already done it. But that same evening, or next evening, I received not only a show cause notice from the Disciplinary Action Committee, but also the suspension from the party. And I assumed that that was on the instructions of the president, but as the president at that time later clarified to me, she didn't know about it.
Were you upset when your relationship with Sonia Gandhi virtually collapsed?
Of course.
Did it hurt you personally?
But I must also say...
But answer my question.
I am answering your question. I said, but I must also say, that was what I was saying. I must also say that I was very happy when, after this 10-year period, I walked into her room when she invited me, and I began the conversation by saying, you know, I haven't met you in person for 10 years, and she nodded. And then I asked her whether she would attend the launch of the first volume of my book, of my autobiography. She came. She sat through it. And everybody noticed her presence more than they noticed the conversation between me and Veer Sangvi. It was noted. And subsequently, Priyanka said she would attend the launch of the second volume, but then there was a clash of dates because she was going to Gaza, or at least she was going to Rafah, to give some relief materials for the poor victims, the Palestinian victims in Gaza. And in principle, she's accepted to be present, that is Priyanka, at the launch of my book, my third volume, which is scheduled for the 6th of February, and to which I hope you'll come. So the relationship with the family continues, but it's not a political relationship anymore.
Does that upset you?
No, because if they are willing to treat me as a friend of the family, in politics, I realized a long, long time ago that you have failings and successes. I don't think you'll understand this because your life has been a series of successes. My life, in contrast, has been the valleys and the summits. So I've learned how to live with adversity, and I'm now living with the fact that my political life is over. Well, if my political life is over, the rest of my life is still there, and I'm enjoying myself talking to you.
You know, you said that when Enram went to meet Rahul Gandhi and spoke about you, Rahul Gandhi said, I don't like him, I love him. But most people have the impression that he's kept you at arm's length all the time.
He has. But he also said he loved Modi. So I've always wondered about that.
Which suggests that, in fact, if his love for Mani Shankar Aiyar is like his love for Modi, he doesn't love either of you very much at all.
I don't think that's the interpretation I would put. I think at a personal level, he has a high regard for me, but he regards me as a political liability. He also says that he does not want me in parliament because I'm too old. Now, I don't accept that. On the calendar, I am 84, but I think you'd agree with me that my mind is fine, my emotions are high, I'm not physically handicapped, and as you said, I'm very smartly dressed. So why shouldn't I be in parliament? And he says I shouldn't be in parliament because I'm too old. I don't think I'm too old, but I'm not the president of the party.
In your eyes, has Rahul got the talent and gravitas to be Prime Minister one day? He may have shared the Pappu image with his yatras, but has he become Prime Ministerial?
I'll give you an argument which I've presented in my book, and I would have hoped you would have looked at that. Amartya Sen was a new lecturer when I went up to Cambridge. He was the first, it was his first assignment as a lecturer. So I've known him for 60 years now. And recently, at Shogato Bose's dinner table, Amartya said to me that he had had both Rajiv and Rahul as his students at Trinity College, Cambridge, of which he was the master later. And he said that of the two, and he looked at me and said, You're not going to like this. He said, Of the two, Rahul is much the brighter. Now, since I have a high regard for Rajiv Gandhi's prime ministership, I'm hoping that Amartya Sen is right and that when and if Rahul becomes the prime minister, he will reveal qualities of head and heart and administrative ability and diplomatic finesse that will make him a good prime minister. I hope
Very
that.
interesting answer. I'm interrupting. You hope that if and when he becomes Prime Minister, he will reveal qualities. Notice that word, reveal qualities of head and heart. That suggests that he hasn't shown them as yet to anyone.
Well, that's exactly what I said about Rajiv Gandhi. I used to know him until he became prime minister. I never thought he had any prime ministerial quality. Yet, when the opportunity arose, I think he was, as my book is devoted to saying, I think he's one of the best prime ministers we've had. And his initiatives in governance are all being forgotten by the media in particular. So, if Rajiv did not show any real capacity to be the prime minister until he became the prime minister, maybe that is a family trait. It was a trait which Indira Gandhi has displayed. When you look at what Jawaharlal Nehru has to say, from the time he returned from England till Mahatma Gandhi came, he was just hanging around the bar of the Allahabad court doing nothing, just smoking. And therefore, there seems to be a family trait that they have an internal hidden talent which comes out only when the challenge is faced before them. And that makes me believe that the genes of Rahul Gandhi may still make him a good leader in government, but we have to first win an election. And that looked as if it might be possible in June 2024, but now looks increasingly remote.
Hi, I'm Karan Thapar. Over the last few years, I hope you've been watching my program, The Interview on the Wire. During that period, I've interviewed doctors, politicians, businessmen, scientists, authors, and even the occasional Nobel laureate. For me, it's been exciting. I hope it's been enjoyable for you. But these, as you know, are tough times, and if this program is going to remain bold, independent, and sometimes even defiant, then I think we need your support. At the end of the day, it's a truism, but editorial independence is best defended by the viewers. So if you would like this program to remain the way it is, forthright, outspoken, and interesting, then would you consider supporting us? All you have to do is to click on the description at the bottom. But more than anything else, I hope you will continue to watch the interview. Your viewership means an awful lot to me.
Before I end, let's talk a little about the present government. We all know that you're a sharp and unrelenting critic of Narendra Modi, but does he have any qualities of head or of heart for which you would give him respect and credit?
Be very difficult for me to, disconnect any one quality from the essential quality of the man, which I don't like at all, and with which I don't agree at all. The man is an RSS pracharak. The man has been brought up to dislike 200 million Indians who are Muslims. The man has made, according to one report that I've read, 110 direct or indirect references to the Muslims in about 150 speeches during the last general election campaign. And anyone who has such prejudices in him, I don't think is worthy of being the Prime Minister, even if he can get up at 4 o'clock in the morning, and even if he does think that he's an instrument of divinity, and even if he's now begun to believe that he's non-biological, I don't think he is the kind of person I would have ever wanted to see as Prime Minister, and I would hope that his Prime Ministership will end sooner than later. He had said that he didn't think anyone should be in politics beyond the age of 75. So I'm looking forward to the 26th of September in this coming year, because he'll be 75 then.
I think his birthday is the 17th of September, if I'm not mistaken.
You may be right. I don't think anyone knows. I don't think anyone knows anything really about Narendra Modi, because there is deception written all across his words and all across even minor details of his life. About his degree, no one knows, and they have been prevented. Delhi University has been prevented from providing this information under the RTI Act on the ground that your university results are known only to you personally and will not be published in the papers. Well, in my case, I stood first in Delhi University, and I'm very proud to say that it came out in the newspapers. That's the first time I ever saw my name in the newspapers.
Tell me, do you intensely dislike Narendra Modi?
Yes.
And you see no remitting, no features in him that could even for a moment say, I like that aspect?
I can give you one or two, but I cannot disconnect them from the man himself. I said this at the beginning, I repeat it now. You want me to say, has he got a good physique? Yeah, of course he has a good physique. Does he do yoga well? I think it's remarkable how he does yoga. Does he get up at 3 in the morning? Well, so he says. I have no reason to disbelieve him unless he invites me to his home at 3 o'clock and I find him sleeping. So therefore, there are things I can say nice about the man, but if they are connected as they are with the fundamental character, which is a great disadvantage for an Indian Prime Minister, if there is this hatred and loathing of Jawaharlal Nehru, which keeps appearing in his statements and what he makes his colleagues in Parliament say, then I say that Nehru's idea of India is what has given us this immensely stable republic, and the alternative idea of India that Mr. Modi is propagating could lead sooner than later to the disintegration of our country.
Finally, you've made it clear that although your political relationship with the Congress is in the doldrums and it's very unlikely to improve, you'll never shift to the BJP. But are there any BJP leaders, either of the past or of today, who you say you could admire?
Yes, a man who was virtually a congressman, who came deeply under the influence of Jawaharlal Nehru, to the point that Golwalkar and Savarkar were almost displaced in his thinking and his practice. And that was Atal Bihari Vajpayee. He did not allow the RSS background that he had, the RSS training that he had, to communalize his prime ministership. Like Modi's prime ministership is a communalized prime ministership. It was Vajpayee was a good man in a wrong party, but it couldn't stop him from being a good man. So that I'm ready to accept that there are some people with an RSS background who became very decent human beings when they more or less give up that background. And it was Govind Acharya who described Vajpayee as a mukhota because the RSS saw that he was not plugging an RSS line. And what Mr. Vajpayee did with Pakistan, what he did with Kashmir, is something I find admirable. And therefore, it's not that I am prejudiced against everyone in the BJP. It is somebody who represents the essence of the BJP, the essence of the Singh Parivar, the essence of the RSS, who I think is an undesirable Indian. And I think those who are desirable Indians are those who more or less subscribe to the idea of India as it emerges from the pages of Nehru's discovery of India.
Let's leave it there, Mani Shankar Aiyar, and I'll simply help the audience by explaining this to them, that when Govind Acharya called Vajpayee a Makhota, he meant that the liberal side of Vajpayee was the Makhota. You're suggesting that the RSS side of him was the Makhota. The real Vajpayee was liberal and Nehruvian, modern and very acceptable. As you said, a good man. Thank you very much indeed for this interview.
Thank you, thank you. And do give a leg up to the book once more.
Here it is, Mani. I'm holding it up for the audience. It's called A Maverick in Politics, and this book is fascinating. I do recommend you read it.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Jai Hind.
Jai Hind.
Hi, I'm Karan Thapar. Over the last few years, I hope you've been watching my program, The Interview on the Wire. During that period, I've interviewed doctors, politicians, businessmen, scientists, authors, and even the occasional Nobel laureate. For me, it's been exciting. I hope it's been enjoyable for you. But these, as you know, are tough times, and if this program is going to remain bold, independent, and sometimes even defiant, then I think we need your support. At the end of the day, it's a truism, but editorial independence is best defended by the viewers. So if you would like this program to remain the way it is, forthright, outspoken, and interesting, then would you consider supporting us? All you have to do is to click on the description at the bottom. But more than anything else, I hope you will continue to watch the interview. Your viewership means an awful lot to me.